Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this morning's episode of Trending. As always, it's brought to you in association with Iconic Coffee. Head over to shop.iconic.com, use the code TRENDING, and you get 10% off. I'm joined once again by Richard Willett. How are you, mate?
Good morning. I'm really well, thank you. It always makes me laugh when you say my full name. It harks back to school days when you were told off, wasn't it? Using your full name. It is a bit
Yes.
scary.
It was the same with parents. I was always Gaz unless I was in trouble.
Which was a lot.
Gareth.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a bit croaky today, so I'm going to apologise to people at home in advance. Basically, this cycle has ruined me. Never again, right? My body is just in some kind of what have you done to me phase. But I'm getting through it with coffee and sourdough toast. You seem quite healthy, Richard.
I am a little bit under the weather again. I can't shake this completely, but I'm better than I was about 3 or 4 weeks ago when I was literally knocking on heaven's door if they ever let me in. Okay, you've a little bit of Guns N' Roses in there. You didn't expect that, did you? Apple
I'm going to
pulls.
go with Bob Dylan. I'm going to go with Bob Dylan's version, I think, if I've got a choice.
What did he do? I didn't know he did a version.
He did the original, didn't he? I mean, this isn't newsworthy, ladies and gentlemen, that are tuning in over their breakfast. But I'm pretty sure Bob Dylan did it, and it was a cover, wasn't it? Knock on Heaven's Door.
Oh, I saw the front cover. Apple has pulled iPhone 16 ad showing off more personal Siri. So we can see this narrative coming in here of this more personal, your best friend kind of type to it. But what was a bit odd about this? I mean, to be fair, it's in the wording, but let's have a look at this. Apple has pulled an ad for the iPhone 16 that depicted a more personal Siri. Following the company's mission last week that is delaying some of the Apple Intelligence Siri features they originally expected to release in the iOS 18. So basically, they're behind. Get put your finger out, get it going. But English actor Isabella Ramsey starred in a now private YouTube video, one of a trio published in September ahead of iPhone 16 pre-orders, in which they are shown asking Siri the name of the person they had a meeting with at a particular restaurant the previous month. I just find that creepy. Now, it could be seen as just a kind of diary, really, of telling you where you've been. But it really depends on what level of information that is and where that information's going. I find that really odd. So it is this kind of whole introduction of AI can be your best friend. It's your personal assistant. And if you look at people like Mark Andreessen, when he's one of these technocrats that's well involved with the likes of Peter Thiel and all of these guys, he talks about it in a way of it being basically every sector will have an AI assistant, but it will be your best friend, and eventually that will just tell you what to do. So you can see this slowly creeping in. It's your best friend. You can rely on it. I think it was Andreessen that actually said that it will never leave you, which I thought was really creepy because it's obviously true. It will be looking at you, watching you, and recording you all the time. But you can see this narrative of it's your best friend. It's going to help you. It's your assistant, and eventually you see a lot of kids in the adverts, especially YouTube, promote this very heavily, even to children, that people asking Siri about everything, or even now chatting to it like it's a psychologist or a therapist. I just find that really, really creepy. So this is just another step forward in this whole kind of AI is going to be your best friend. Eventually, it will be your master, not very long in the future. And Andreessen, these names, if you've not looked at them, look them up. Mark Andreessen and Horowitz. They're a company that basically pushed this whole agenda. If you look into Peter Thiel, you'll understand. Obviously, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, but there's also Anthony Lewandowski, worth looking into. He's got an AI cult with an AI godhead. He was pardoned by Donald Trump on his last day in office last time. You can see these guys all surrounding Trump at the moment, pushing this stuff. So it's got to be your best friend, Gaz. Soon,
Can't
your
wait.
AI friend. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like you said, they made the advert private, but on the news article that you sent to me, so we'll put that in the link below, you can actually watch the advert. My first takeaway was that the girl in the advert is a cross between the original Matilda and Sonia from EastEnders, right? And with that in my mind, I couldn't stop thinking it the whole way through the advert. But my other takeaway from it is basically humans are a bit stupid, aren't they?
Yeah.
They can't find the words. They can't remember. They can't remember the guy's name in the advert. They didn't bother reading the email that they get probed on in the work interview. They can't give a decent eulogy at the funeral of the dead fish. I mean, This isn't a mad David Bowie song. This is the advert, right? And so
Well, the
all of
symbology
these things,
of that, Gaz, would be Christianity.
well, potentially, yeah, that's it. But
Yeah.
all the takeaways from all the different scenarios in the advert are that humans are just a bit silly, really. Don't worry, AI's got your back. But the one part of it, the original bit, where she basically turns up at this bar, doesn't she? She sees a guy that she recognizes, but she doesn't know his name. Mate, I know that feeling, right? I'm awful with names. And so she goes, Siri, what was that guy's name that we met on the such and such meeting? And then Siri tells her, I can't remember his name, but whatever, his name's Dave. And she's like, and then he comes over, all right, Dave, all right, I didn't think you'd remember me. You could forget Dave, right? So then you go, okay, well done, AI, you've got me out of an awkward situation. But what that means is that your phone was listening the whole time you were there before and has remembered Dave and remembered the whole conversation enough for you to be able to, ask it a question and it tell you the answer. That in itself is pretty dark, isn't it? Because if Siri's listening, the people behind Siri are listening to everything.
Yep. It's absolutely spot on. And the things that they miss, obviously the goldfish thing is that we can't remember. We're so stupid that we can't remember as much as a goldfish that swings around in circles. That's obviously the analogy there, but there could be a Christianity type thing there. But yeah, absolutely, humans are stupid. They need assistance. They need absolutely assistance and everything. We're so dumb. The technology that we created is smarter than us. We are now being taken over by the toaster that we created. It's just absurd. But they're putting it it's an assistant, as you just said. How does it gather that information? And Palantir employees are sitting there going, oh, well, he wants to know that's Dave. Just tell her it's Dave. Probably not Dave. Dave's just too embarrassed to say, oh, my name's not Dave. It's Bruce. And
I'd do that.
We've been out on 3 dates.
Yeah. I'd give her the wrong name. But there's evidence of that from a long time ago, even with like Alexa and stuff, with the Amazon versions of these, where people were actually listening to people having sex. They were sat, in a warehouse somewhere or in an office somewhere through Alexa listening to people having sex, like husbands and wives and stuff. I mean, it's a bit weird, isn't it?
Well, you don't see that job down the job centre, do you? I mean,
no, it's probably described as something different.
Yeah.
The war on farmers, Richard, continues. Quelle surprise. This was something actually that was quite poignant on the cycle, where me and Jay obviously were going the whole way through rural England, because you have to avoid obviously motorways and dual carriageways because you're not allowed on them on a bike. I noticed a couple of things. One, England's a beautiful country. The other thing is it's being decimated with solar farms. Honestly, acres and acres. Some of the places we were, it's literally as far as the eye can see. And you're looking at it, you're thinking this is fertile farmland. Bosh, no longer. So there's been a war on farmers for a while, even before Labour. Labour are just coming in to perform the funeral because I think that's what their job essentially is just to ramp it up even more. This is the headline. Farmers will be forced to sell fields for less than their potential value under Rayner's land grab. Angela Rayner being the professional northerner who is deputy to Zippy, the head of the Labour Party. Farmers already left outraged by Labour's inheritance tax grab will be forced to sell their land for less than its potential value. Fields targeted by councils to build new hospitals, that's the sales pitch, as if they're going to build a new hospital. Schools and homes would be snapped up through compulsory purchase orders under new measures in the Planning and Infrastructure Bill. But the greater powers handed to local authorities would mean that they could buy the land at its current price rather than the value of what it would be worth if it was developed. So obviously, if someone's coming to take your land off you, you own that land, you should be able to name the price. You should be able to say, well, hang on, if you buy this land off me at, I don't know, say £500,000, and yet he's going to go and develop it and make £10 million out of it, hang on a minute, you're having a laugh, son. Well, you wouldn't be able to do that under these rules. Like I say, again, it's the continuation of the war on farmers. Is taking land off of from private ownership into state ownership, and it's taken away land that you could farm for food, so food production, so you create food scarcity, which then lifts the prices of food. It creates state dependence. All these things are straight off the pages of Agenda 2030, Sustainable Development Guide, getting people off the land into smart 15-minute cities. Because the thing is, Rich, people don't realise this, and there was a lot of this chatter during the conversations about the inheritance tax. Oh, why are they whinging? The farm's worth 5 million quid. No, the land's worth 5 million quid. In fact, the farm probably only turns a profit of, say, 25, 30,000 pounds a year. And the guy's got to work 14-hour days for that. So what happens is, when it gets passed down a generation, they can't afford to pay the inheritance tax on it. So they have to lose a bit of the land. So they sell a bit of the land. So for solar farm, probably. But they sell a bit of the land. So then your profits are even smaller because you're producing less food. So then the next generation comes along with an even smaller margin of profit. Well, I can't afford to pay the inheritance tax on that. All right, well, then another bit goes. And so in the end, the farms get smaller to the point where they're not sustainable. So then the farmer goes, do you know what? Can't survive being a farmer. And he ends up in a smart city on a universal basic income, probably. It's so obvious what's going on now, Rich. It's getting ridiculous because, as we said yesterday, 2030 it's a stone's throw away now, isn't it? It's no distance at all in time.
Yeah, you're totally right, and as you say, because we know the outcome, you can see the pieces put into places. Unfortunately, not enough people know the outcome there. It's an Indian caste system. It's the same thing. They've put a cap on how much you can achieve. Over in America, it's the land of the free, but you can only get to this much. It's not free if you've got a limit on how much you can prosper. And that's basically what they're saying to your family. Your family is stuck in that caste system. As a farmer, you will never get to a certain level. You will never prosper any more than that. Because if you do, we're going to take half of it away and then you're not going to be able to survive. So everything you're working for, you're basically working for the government. Again, none of these things are like the system that wants to come in. I think a lot of people think that it's coming. It's already there. They just want to do it outwardly. They want to do it overtly. They don't want to have to hide anything they're doing. They want to be able to stand on, having their CEO of the world stand on stage and tell everyone to do. They're tired of living in the shadows. They want to do it overtly. The actual system, the caste system, even down to the education where people get a state education as opposed to a private education and taught completely different things and other doors opened up. That's already there. That we live in that already. They just want to do it outwardly. And I think that's a really important thing to say is, look, we have an opportunity here because they've been doing this stuff for hundreds of years in the dark. Now they want to do it openly and outwardly, and enough of us here for them not to be able to do that and change it. So there is an opportunity here. Every time they make big changes like this, there's always an opportunity to pull it down around them, and they know that. So be aware that this system that they want to introduce, it's not overtly out there, but it is there still. And the technocracy part of it has been around for a while now. So they just want to overtly do exactly what they're doing in the shadows already. And that's put a cap on you and your family and keep you in the caste system that you've been born into, which is absurd. That's not a free world.
Well, they've done that, Labour, in terms of increasing the tuition fees for private education, because that doesn't price out the super wealthy. How much is it? I don't care. I'll write you a check. It doesn't affect them. It affects those that have maybe squirreled away a little bit and want to get on a bit. So I had a state education. It's pretty ropey. Or maybe you're looking at state education now, and you're looking at your local school somewhere like Birmingham and seeing the fact that the kids are arriving and having to put their bags through scanners to check for knives, and thinking, do you know what? Actually, I don't really want my kids there. I don't have much money, but I'll try and squirrel away. Maybe I'll work some extra hours over the weekend. I'll see if my gaffer will give me some overtime so I can send my kids to a private school, even if it's just a small independent one, to give them a better chance so they don't have to deal with this shite. Oh, no. Sorry, the fees have gone up. Well, that makes it unaffordable for them. It doesn't make it unaffordable for the IBM CEO who does what the hell he wants. Do you know what I mean? So this, like you say, that it's exactly right. There is a glass ceiling, and what people like the Labour Party, and they're all the same. It's not just Labour. They're all the same. Is actually just getting that glass ceiling and just sticking a nice fat layer of concrete over the top of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Your next story.
Yeah,
Rich.
and I'll also add to that, Gaz. Well, I just want to add to that is that not only that is that the education that they're given in these private schools is completely different, but it's not an education. It's a different set of indoctrination. So you've got the indoctrination of people that go to public schools are told that this is as far as you can get, and it's true in the sense that that's the doors that will be open for you. They've got other doors, and they're taught all of this esoteric, even occult stuff, depending how far up they are. It's a different level education. The best education I think you could get is go out and learn for yourself and critically analyze the system in of itself, and stand outside and look in and say, look, this is, as you say, two-tier policing. There's a two-tier system here. Well, it's many-tier system. So the best education you can is question everything and looking it to yourself, because what you're doing in school is you're entering the system at that level via that education. That's not an education, it's indoctrination. So you can stand out like we've done, and many others have done around the world, have gone, this is nonsense. This is all nonsense. I'm going to look at this from my own perspective and try and figure out a way of surviving outside their system, building something small for myself that makes a decent living for myself. And I think the other thing I just want to add to that is that these people are greedy. They're greedy. They're gluttonous. They want everything. If you only go for what you actually need in life, you can actually have a really nice life, and you haven't got to try and do all of these things. It becomes an ego trip. And actually, you don't need a lot. You just need people around you. You need a roof over your head. You need a decent amount of money coming in a year, but you don't need everything that they've got. That's why they sell their soul for it. You don't need to do that. So I think it's a really pertinent thing. Is there's ways out of this system. You just don't need to play into it.
No, I've never been fussy, to be honest, Rich. Don't know about you. Even as a kid, just a ball on a wall. No. I was happy as Larry. The Russians, mate, up to no good again in Great Yarmouth.
Yeah, I know.
Didn't
of
see
all
that
places, coming. I mean, I really didn't. I really, really didn't. This absolutely blew my mind. So, inside Russia's Spies, Norfolk guest house headquarters. Now, this is a place that I walk past every couple of weeks. It's a town, like it's basically a guest house on the seafront in Yarmouth. And I mean, I should have guessed, because if you pop the picture up here, Mr. Producer Man, it actually looks like it's painted like Jeffrey Epstein's temple. So maybe I should have guessed that. But I walk past this place every time. So a Bulgarian spy green. That's terrible. That's not even right. A Bulgarian spy ring that passed secrets onto the Russian state ran their covert operation from a quaint-looking Norfolk hotel. It was revealed in court. This is in Great Yarmouth on the seafront. Shocking photos show rooms at the Haydee guest house in Great Yarmouth crammed full of surveillance equipment and spy toys. So spy stuff stuck inside kids' toys. Among the high-tech gadgets found was a £120,000 IMSI grabber that could capture people's mobile phone numbers and fake ID printers. This is in Great Yarmouth on the seafront. Like, you would never expect that there. And when they break in, go and have a look at the video. This is on Daily Mail. When they break in, the guy, like, he's living in a 10-bedroom guest house on his own, full of spy equipment in Great Yarmouth. He's just sitting in there reading the paper. It's just amazing to me. So he was running it from Yarmouth, but they were operating all around the UK. His spies. He was the guy who was running it for, apparently, the Russians. So beautician Vanya Gabarova, 30, decorator Timur Ivanchev, 39, and lab technician Katrina Ivanova, 33, were all found guilty of conspiring to spy for Russia at the Old Bailey following a 3-month trial. Their handler Orin Rusev, 46, his lieutenant Bisser, now I'm not even going to try that one, 43, and Ivan Stavayonov, 32, had pleaded guilty to the charges under the Criminal Official Secrets Act. Rusev previously boasted about being like James Bond. He's the guy who was in the actual hotel. James Bond's Q, due to the scale of surveillance equipment at the Haydee guest house. I mean, it was incredible. To think that I walk past that guest house every 2 or 3 weeks, and you go down to Yarmouth seafront
to get your instructions.
And many people do. To get my instructions, yeah. And the other funny thing is, it's not that far. It's a stone's throw from the Freemasonic Temple.
How far is it from Puppet Man?
Well, he moves around, doesn't he? I told you about the Puppet Man.
For ladies and gentlemen at home, there's a Puppet Man in the centre of Great Yarmouth that we think is potentially doing something clandestine. Maybe this is it, mate.
I tell you what, it's everywhere. But the whole theme of that is Russia bad, and
Yeah.
could even get in Norfolk. And I had a 10-room guest house there that they were running, aspiring out of, and you just wouldn't have thought it. Why people are going up and down the up and down the Ferris wheel outside, and then the snake. There's people in there actually aspiring for Russia and Yarmouth. It blew my mind that they can go everywhere. And as I say, it's not far from the Masonic Free Hall as well. So you're telling me that they didn't know something about this. This is just very, very absurd and bizarre to me. And obviously, it's been blamed on Russia. I haven't seen the evidence of Russia yet, but maybe there's more to it or not. So I need to carry on looking into that.
Everything's Russia. I saw it and I thought, I mean, one of the ladies' surnames was it I ran him over? Because that just sounds like a confession. It's the demonization of Russia. Russia bad. Also, what it does is for all those that are like, you think they're going to stop at Ukraine? No, it'll be Poland next. Then it'll be France. Then it'll be everyone. And then it'll be the moon. Suddenly they're on English soil now. They're in Great Yarmouth. So see, I told you they were targeting us. It implicates Bulgaria, of course. They'll be moving chess pieces around as they did in World War One and World War Two with who's on whose side should it all kick off. So there'll be a little bit of that involved. The bit I found the most laughable, though, Rich, right, is obviously we're told that Russia has this incredible technology. They they can hack into different countries. They can hack an election in the United States to get Trump in the first time. They can hack Brexit. Yet what they need is 5 guys and a woman called I ran him over, knocking about in a guest house near the fish and chip shop and the snails on Great Yarmouth seafront. I'm not convinced.
I'm not convinced either. I'm really, really not. It just seems so. And when you see him, he's one guy and there with tech everywhere. It looks like the back storeroom of cash converters. It's not orderly. It's not like you've gone in there and it's like the bat cave. Watch the video. It's like, this looks like basically he's fixing up phones. So there may be something else to this. It doesn't seem like it rings completely true. But to be Russian spies, I mean, come on, Putin, put some more money in the system, because these guys were living in a hovel in the place is lovely, don't get me wrong, it was a lovely guest house once, but it wasn't when they got hold of it. In a way it's a perfect place to have it, because like, you wouldn't think, but also it's not the most efficient, I would say, to have your spiring there. I mean, what do I know about spirings? Very little, but I mean, space, I suppose. Maybe there's much more going on there than I know.
You'd expect it to be a lot more tidy, and I would expect James Bond to not be wearing a pair of tracksuit bottoms, but then maybe that's part of it. Do you know what I mean? Look over here. Final story
There's
then, Rich.
Puppet Man.
Don't look at Puppet Man. This is an interesting one, because we've spoken about it for a long time. Dad's spoken about it since day zero, probably. The fact that the idea for World War III is essentially pitching the West, so NATO essentially, against kind of a trilogy of Russia, Iran, and China, with various other countries, perhaps Hungary, perhaps Bulgaria, whatever, Belarus, coming in on the side of those guys, to build this third world war, this Gog and Magog, this big end times battle that they can then rebuild out the back of. Now, obviously, Russia bad. We've just covered it in the last story. And to be fair, I mean, we can go back 10, 15 years. It was all Russia, wasn't it? It's all we've heard in the British media. Iran, same thing. You've got Israel bombing Syria, bombing Lebanon, massacring people in Gaza. But it's Iran that are the stumbling block to peace in the Middle East. That's what we're told. So those two are kind of engaged, sort of, already. Whereas China, they're just on the periphery. And I remember talking to Warren Thornton, a military veteran, and he was saying to me, keep an eye on China and keep an eye on the South China Sea and the Philippines, because that's the one that's going underneath the radar. That's the one that's going to bring China in to this, Third World War scenario. And so I did what he'd said, and I kind of kept an eye on it. And there's little bits here and there, but not a lot until today. So I got up this morning and saw, again, the witless wonder David Lammy, and I was thinking to myself, this was about 5 o'clock this morning, Rich, and I was thinking, at a time of great turmoil, we've got David Lammy. Is it too early to, crack a bottle of scotch? Because that's how I feel. UK concerned by Chinese activity in the South China Sea, says Foreign Secretary. That's Foreign Minister. Sorry, that's the 10-watt light bulb, David Lammy. Britain is concerned by China's dangerous and destabilising activity in the South China Sea, British Foreign Minister David Lammy said on Monday. We're concerned by dangerous and destabilising activities by China in the South China Sea. Just repeated the same line again in the second paragraph of the article. Well done. Lammy said on a post on X. The UK and world economy depends on these trade routes being safe and secure. In a video accompanying the post, Lammy said the Philippines is at the sharp end of this, facing frequent challenges to freedom of navigation and international law. And my first thought was, suddenly Lammy cares about international law, because he doesn't care when Israel are breaking it. Couldn't care less. He doesn't care about what's going on in Syria now, where there's Christians being massacred in their thousands by the very people that Mr. Lammy handed £5 million of UK taxpayer money to support. And also no word about Nord Stream, which is an act of war and against international law to blow up Nord Stream, which of course was blamed on the Russians, and then they couldn't even make that stick because it's so flaming ridiculous. So then one man and a dog from the Ukraine admitted they did it when that would have been absolutely impossible. And the more evidence is coming out now, it was blatantly NATO that did it. Not a word from Lam about that. But it kind of, I've got an eye on this now, Rich, because I'll see where this goes. Because, as I said, Warren Thornton said, look, keep an eye on that. This is the one. And so far, China has been on the periphery. So there's been, a bit of hacking. Maybe there's been a spy balloon, but no real act of aggression or anything like that in terms of really escalating into a third world war scenario. So this might be the start of that, mate.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's one to keep an eye on, isn't it? And Russia, China, bad, but then Russia's quite good now. So they'll switch the narrative, as we said in the Ukraine and Russia. Like they've been bombing the hell out of each other continuously. Nothing's changed other than the headlines, and that's what I think we were discussing before we started recording. Is that only thing that really changes is the headlines and the narrative you're fed. The actual actions when you go there is not what you're being told across the mainstream and some alternative media as well. So be aware that is. But there's a point where with China needs to be put onto the side of the good guys because they want to introduce that system. So there has to be maybe a little bit less from China in terms of being able to bait and switch that. That'll be one to watch. But Russia and China, and again, when we say countries, we're not talking about the country. Again, it's a label, as we said about Israel yesterday. You're attacking a corporation, a dead entity. It's not something you can actually, let's defeat Russia. What does that even mean? None of that doesn't mean anything. So these are people within those governments that work for some other affiliation. You could call them spies, but you could call them Sabbateans. You could call them anything you like. These are guys in there that have infiltrated it from within, are changing it from within. So it's not the actual government. It's definitely not the people below it, but there's factions within all of these organizations that are corrupt. And that's why it's really hard for people to kind of get over this label. They love you speaking about Russia, China, England, UK going against each other because it doesn't really mean anything, because deep within all of those factions are, we believe, and from our research, many years and decades, including your dad, of research, that there's factions within all of these countries, these labels that are working together. And that's how it works. They hide behind all of these things. So you attack the window dressing, the front shop window, and you don't really see what's going on in the storeroom out the back. They're all connected by the looks of it.
Yeah. And they want us fighting. That's the point, isn't it? And like you say, we spoke before we came on air, the fact that you've got, Zelensky arriving in Saudi Arabia. The Americans are going there as well for these peace talks to try and end the war between Russia and Ukraine at the same time as Ukraine sends drones into Moscow killing Russians. So there's obviously factions there that don't want this war to end. Of course they don't. They don't want any peace talks to succeed. Because there's money to be made and there's death to enjoy, and that's the most frustrating thing, that actually, and we speak about this all the time, that the people that are sent to die are not the people making the decisions. The people sent to die are just cannon fodder. They don't matter. They're just a few Russians, a few Ukrainians, a few Iranians, a few Palestinians, a few Israelis even. It doesn't matter. That's whatever, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Those that are making the decisions and sending them to war, it's not like the old days where they would go over the top first with the cavalry. Like, they're nowhere near these places. And what's so frustrating is that Ukrainians and Russians have got more in common with each other than either of them have got with Zelensky or Putin or any of the other people. And once we can get to a position where we go, do you know what? I'm done. Like, I'm done. Then you'd watch the world change in 20 minutes.
Somewhere.
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it?
Then we're getting somewhere. Yeah, we would. Yeah, it's like two people fighting over farmland, mate. And they just basically want people to annihilate each other so the farmland's free and they can just take it. That's the point. That's the whole point of it. Triangulation.
Exactly. There you go. Rich, great to talk to you again. I shall see you again in the morning, mate. Thank you to everyone at home for tuning in to today's episode of Trending. As always, it's brought to you in association with Iconic Coffee. Head over to shop.iconic.com, use the code TRENDING, and you get 10% off. Take it easy, Rich. See you later, everyone.